not about their beliefs. So a metaframe is typically about the relationship between the people that are right there.
Getting it then to an identity level.
That's right. Exactly. Right. So what she's saying is she's saying what's kind of also seems to be going above, you're going up, you're going to a more identity level in a way. And sometimes you can see a metaframe is where I'm saying that all of their behavior can be interpreted inside of a particular frame that changes its meaning. So the example I was giving the negotiators in here was of Freud's idea of transference. If I can say, the only reason you're having a problem is that there's a negative transference here. I mean, what I've done is I put this frame around it that's completely outside of anything that has to do with their argument. And how is he going to argue against it? If he starts saying, no, it isn't, I'd say, here, there's another example of negative transference. You're only disagreeing with me because you have a transference to me on, a negative transference.
That he's transferred his feelings from this person to the person he gave.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, so it's a comment about something he's doing. It's a comment about the process of what's happening, the relationship of what's happening, as opposed to the content. Some of these sleight of mouth patterns, I have to admit that the definitions can be made clear, and it's one of the things I'm constantly searching for. Sometimes the best way to do it is just to do it by example. For example, if I wanted to metaframe our context, I would say, well, the only reason that you're having trouble with this is because it involves a process that people don't do very much. And it's hard to define it because in order to understand something, you already have to have a reference for it. So what that does is it puts a frame it's a different frame. It's not, well, because the definition isn't good enough or you don't understand or we can't do it. It's just we're going to saying it's a way of thinking that most people aren't very familiar with. So notice I'm talking about a process level. Right.
Do the Virginia Satir super reasonable? Wouldn't they use it a lot?
Yeah. You know who did it a lot? I'll tell you one person. Jesus did it a lot. He had a good metaframe where he said, people that are of God understand what I'm saying. If you don't understand the only reason you don't understand what I'm saying is because you're not of God. I mean, if you were of God, you'd understand what I'm saying. How are you going to argue with it? I mean, as soon as you start arguing against it, you're putting your own foot in your mouth because he put this frame around that says, you have to argue with me because you are not from the Spirit here. If you were from the Spirit, you wouldn't be arguing. So again, now what person can't really do anything in order to get out of that, because if they try to argue, it's just more proof of what he said. I mean, it's not going to get you out of it. It'll get you in deeper. So it's kind of a metaframe around, it's about a relationship, as I'm saying, because you're not from God. Now, I was actually saying it on a more positive level. I was sort of almost saying the same thing when I said, since people don't think this way that much, it's hard for them to understand it, because it's not a natural function. Well, that's like saying, well, if you thought this way, you'd understand it. So if you thought this way all the time, it'd be easy to understand. And the reason that you need to get the definitions for things like metaframe is because they're the most important ones. They're the ones that people don't automatically always have intuitions about, which means that's where the most learning will take place. So that's positive metaframe.
Did you see the film Brown Eyes Door?
No.
It's hard to talk about it, but this woman did that. She created a whole thing about prejudice around brown eyes and blue eyes, and she created a belief, and not just with kids, but with adults. And then the next day she switched around and turned around the other way.
Yeah.
She was incredible how she...
Yeah, and that's some of the kind of things that we're talking about here with that's the power of sleight of mouth. Now,
okay. So anyway, two people go out to dinner very often, and they start out, and they're like this, straight up. Okay? General. Okay? As they get into rapport, what do?
Lean forward.
Lean forward. As they begin to lean forward. Did you ever notice Robert's always forward? I mean, he's not up here too very
it's just because I'm always looking very specifically at the big picture.
Right. Anyway, as you watch people, as they become more and more specified, one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to tend to move their bodies together. Okay. Now that becomes a very good clue as you're starting to do this kind of pattern. Where are they? Are they up here? Or are they here? Try playing with the rapport patterns and some of the patterns Robert has been going over this weekend. Start out up here, okay, as the other person is specified, and see what happens. See how long that conversation can go on in this postural base.
It's kind of like also the thing I was saying about if you go in to do a negotiation or consultation and you notice that both people are, if they're both like this, they probably disagree about big issues. If they're more like this, disagreeing, they're probably about the smaller pieces, which I think can kind of give you some interesting insight into assessing an audience or a group or a conflict before you even get started.
Which is kind of a nice thing to have. Okay, because if you can pre-assess before you get in there. Okay, a lot of you who, for example, are into massage. Okay, how many of you do massage in here? Or get massage? Much larger number, yes.
Joke up.
Okay. Think about how people approach each other for massage. I mean, I've seen people come into a masseuse and go, masseuse? Is that the right word? Massage therapist.
Massage person.
You're in Florida now, we're licensed. You come into a massage therapist and they say, yes, I've got this problem. Okay. Give them the global problem. And then as they start to talk about the muscles that are being affected, very often you see the movement more specified. There's a lot of different applications to this. The business ones are real important, real good. So, you want to go over this stuff or you want to get somebody up here?
Well, we don't want to do both.
You're probably not going to have enough time.
No, we can do them both together. What we want to do is to show how you would work this. We can do it at the same time. It's easy. Just put your ears over here and your eyes up here.
Well, by the way, Robert invited me to come up. That's not on the tape, so just so people out there know.
Yeah, one of the things I want to do is to go over, when you're dealing with beliefs, there are a couple of basic belief issues that you run across a lot. On here, we've got our hierarchy that we've been dealing with up until this point. We have identity, beliefs, capabilities, specific behaviors, and environment. One of the things that I've done is to show that typically when people have something, an issue regarding their identity, kind of in between identity and belief, you get a sense of worthlessness. Worthless is usually a statement about your identity. Hopeless is usually a statement about, well, even if I do it, nothing's going to make any difference anyway. It isn't really possible. Helpless is usually a statement about your capabilities and specific behaviors. So very often what you're going to find is if you work with people, whether it's, again, in health or in business or whatever, if somebody doesn't believe, or if a student, say, doesn't believe that it's possible to perform the function that they're supposed to do, they're going to be hopeless. And what difference does it make? Somebody might believe that the goal is possible, but that they don't have what it takes to get it. So therefore you would feel helpless. If it's possible to get there, but I can't do it, I don't have the capability or the behaviors, then I'm going to feel helpless. If I believe that the goal is possible, I even have the capabilities to do it, but I don't deserve it,